guys, welcome to my second queer questions video. Today we're actually just gonna go over one queer question because it was so good and so expansive that I thought it required an entire video. The question of the day is, what are the most common inappropriate questions that LGBT folk get, and what are more appropriate ways to ask those questions? This question was a little hard for me because as a queer educator, I'm always telling people, just ask me anything, you guys, I don't care if it's offensive, just do it. And I've put myself in this position very specifically and very purposefully because straight people do ask a lot of offensive questions. And I would rather they ask me in a safe space of my own making than ask some random queer person who isn't prepared to be faced with that kind of antagonism. However, I harken back to my baby bi days and I asked my queer friends, and I think I've come up with a pretty good list of genuinely inappropriate questions that people ask all queer people, regardless of whether they're educators or not. At the end of each question, I'm also going to say what a better way to ask that question would be. So this video is going to be shot in 4 sections. We've got questions people ask queer people in general, questions they ask gays and lesbians, questions they ask bisexuals, questions they ask trans people, and a secret 5th bonus section, which is questions people sent in that I thought were really good, but I couldn't really fit into any of those sections. There is definitely going to be overlap between the sections. I just thought it would be a clearer way to look at them. Keep in mind that these questions are very much based on the time and place where people heard them. As a queer person, you might not have heard these questions, or as a straight person, you might not have asked these questions. Just know that within a northeastern, Western society, American context, these are some pretty common questions that my friends and I have heard all the time. First, we're going to talk about questions people ask queer folks in general that they really shouldn't. Question number 1, what are you? This question is a little aggressive and it immediately puts a queer person on the defense, which is not what you want if you want to have like a healthy, happy, open conversation. It's a little bit dehumanizing. You're not asking, how do you identify, or who are you? The what kind of makes us sound like we're aliens or something, and not in a fun way. Also, this question is a little bit entitled. It assumes that a straight person has a right to know how other people identify, whether in terms of gender or sexuality or both, when really that can be someone's private identity that they don't want to share. It puts queer people in a position where they have to out themselves against their will before they're ready, or they have to lie and say that they're straight. It's kind of impossible to say, I don't feel like answering that question, because then they'll know that you're queer, because straight people just say, I'm straight, obviously. Neither of those situations are really good. And as a straight person who wants to engage queer people in a respectful manner, that's not really a position you want to put anybody in. There's also a bit of an implication with this question that queer people are to blame if they don't make their identity obvious enough, or if they don't out themselves to somebody soon enough. If you want to know someone's identity, how do you ask them? I don't have an instant gratification answer to this, and I'm sorry about that. The very best way to find out someone's identity is to wait until they tell you themselves, because it means that they're comfortable with you, that they respect you, that they trust you, and that's a huge honor, and it's a lot better than what queer people are feeling if they're forced to out themselves to you. And I'm sure it'll make you feel a lot better too. I'm not saying you have to wait for a queer person to come up to you and say, hey, I'm bisexual, or hey, I'm transgender, or whatever they are. You can also wait for a queer person to drop some hints. For example, if I say, oh yeah, my ex-girlfriend used to work at that shop, you can say like, oh, I didn't know you were gay, or oh hey, so do you identify as bisexual or something else? When queer people drop hints, it usually means that they're okay with being asked after they've dropped that hint. So that's kind of your in. But if a queer person isn't dropping any hints and you really want to know, you can also kind of speed the process up by creating a safe space, by actively not assuming anyone's identity, whether it's sexual orientation or gender. You can use gender neutral pronouns. You can say things like, oh, my partner. You can ask somebody, hey, so did you think that guy was cute, or did you think that girl was cute? There's a lot of ways to ask subtly, and these more subtle ways also let queer people get away with not lying. They can be more subtle with their answer, and that's appreciated. Finally, if you're a straight person and you really want to ask this question, you just really, really want to know what someone identifies as, my question to you is why? Why is it so important to know how someone identifies? In an ideal utopian world, knowing how someone identifies wouldn't change anything about the way you act towards them, even if it's a positive way. Because if you act differently towards gay people, even if it's nicer after you've met them and found out that they're gay, it means that you're still kind of stereotyping gay people and othering gay people. And trust me, we pick up on it, and it's not pleasant. Keep in mind that for all of these questions, and this question especially, it's very different for a queer person to ask this question. If a queer person asks, hey, like, how do you identify? It's because they're searching for more queer people. They're searching for a connection. They're searching for a safe community. They're searching for someone to identify with them. That can be part of survival in some places. So just know that for these questions, the standards of what a queer person can ask and what a straight person can ask are very different. Question number 2. So like, do you ever wish you were straight? No! Just flames on the side of my face. If you ask the question, first of all, you have to be ready to get an answer that you don't expect. There is so much that I have gained from being queer, and I would never give it back. Really, if someone said, hey, you can do your entire life over, you'll never have to face the homophobia, you'll never have to face the confusion of coming out. Also, I'll give you $1 billion, and you'll be super famous, and you'll be great at everything you ever try. I would not give my queerness up for that life. Being queer is so great. It's so fulfilling and so wonderful in so many ways that I discover every single day, and I've been out for a decade now. The great things about being queer, the big ones, are that first of all, you have a community wherever you go in the world. That's amazing. Who else can just travel to the middle of nowhere and find people who are willing to listen to them and take them out for a drink and put them up for a place to stay? It's such a supportive community, and that is so powerful. In embracing my queerness, I also got to embrace an entirely new culture and history that I never even knew existed before I came out. That's amazing. It's so fun. It's so beautiful. Getting to take part in this incredible heritage that has persevered throughout the ages is an honor, and I'm so grateful for it every single day. Being queer has become about so much more than just, I don't know, who I choose to date, right? Or how I choose to dress. It's about being able to look at societal norms, seeing what makes me personally happy, and seeing what doesn't. Because I'm queer and because I went through the process of exploring my identity and who I am and what that means, I'm a lot better at exploring that outside of the realm of queerness. For example, it helped me think about what kind of future I want, what kind of career I want. A lot of things that aren't inherently related to queerness are able to be looked at through a queer lens. When people ask this question, I always want to ask, hey, have you ever asked yourself if you've wished to be gay? If you're starting to feel jealous about being queer, that means you're starting to get it. When is the last time that straight people expressed how happy they were to feel straight? How it connected them to their community, things like that. As a queer person, we get to feel that gratefulness every single day, and that's such a privilege in its own way. I can say personally, I have only wished that I was straight once in my life, and that was when I was first feeling an attraction to women. I didn't understand what I was feeling. I was confused, I was scared, I was embarrassed, and I didn't know anything about the queer community. I didn't know that I would get support for being queer. I didn't know about the history of queerness. I was just worried that it was either I'm straight or I'm beaten up in alleyways. So really, the only time I ever wished I was straight, and I think this is true for a lot of queer people, is because I didn't know that the alternative was better. I didn't even know that there was an alternative. If you don't know a healthy alternative to being straight, of course you're gonna wish to be straight. From the moment I have understood what queerness means in general and what queerness means to me specifically, I have never looked back. And it's not even that I just don't think about it, like, oh, I'm okay being straight or gay. It's like, no, I really, really want to be queer. I really do not want to be straight. Here's the issue with the question itself. First of all, it implies that being straight is better, which it's not. Second of all, it implies that everyone should want to be straight, which we don't. If you still want to ask your queer friends this question, maybe instead of asking them if they wish they were straight, you can ask them about the joys of being queer. Ask them what it means to them. That's a much nicer way of asking that doesn't put in your own assumptions about straightness while still getting across the general message of like, hey, let's talk about what makes you happy about being queer and what doesn't. Question number 3. Why do you always feel the need to add labels to everything? Doesn't it just segregate people more? This question, I guess, can be well-meaning, and it's true that not every queer person feels the need to label themselves. But it's also true that having a label helps us connect to our community, to our heritage, to our friends, to ourselves in a much more significant way sometimes, in a much easier way. Without having a label, it's kind of like searching Google without the keywords. It's a lot harder to find what you're looking for. Having labels doesn't separate us. Being queer separates us. The fact is that everyone in society already has the default label of straight and cisgender. So it's not that straight people don't have labels, it's just that they don't have to think about them every day, because it's assumed that that's their label. It can feel like queer people are making a big deal about their label, but that's only because they actually have to talk about it in order for anyone to know. But even if they didn't have that label, they wouldn't stop being queer. So if you think that being queer does separate people, it's not about whether they have a label or not, right? It's just about who they are on the inside. What this question is really asking at its core is, why are you not making more of an effort to seem like you're not queer? Why are you not making more of an effort to pretend to be straight? Why are you making me question my own identity and my own relationship to gay people? Those are some pretty victim-blaming implications. What it's really saying is just shut up about being queer, because it doesn't make me personally feel good as a straight person. But the thing is, if people talking about queerness makes you uncomfortable, that's a great time to explore who you are and explore why it makes you uncomfortable. That's not a great time to put those feelings onto a queer person. Diversity is amazing. We shouldn't want to all look the same and be the same and act the same. Very often, queer people purposely make themselves obviously queer. They're not trying to hide it because they're not ashamed of it. And they want you to notice, and they want you to know their presence, and they want you to engage in queerness by interacting with them. We shouldn't force them to assimilate just because it makes some people uncomfortable and they don't know how to deal with it. So in general, it's just not really polite or particularly socially aware to ask someone or imply that they're having labels and they're being proud of those labels and they're embracing those labels is causing further segregation, because that's just not true. Question number 4. So, do you only talk about queer issues and care about queer issues because you're queer? That's it, right? That's why you care. I get this question all the time as a queer educator. People always ask me, hey, what kind of educator would you be if you weren't queer? I mean, I like to think that I'd still be an educator who cares about basic humanitarian rights and sensitivity. I don't believe anyone should be a second-class citizen. I'm not a black person, but I support Black Lives Matter, and I try to educate people on it whenever I have the opportunity. There are plenty of identities that I don't have that are still oppressed by society, and I still fight for their rights. I still work to educate myself and to educate others about it. So yes, I am queer, and that does give me first-hand knowledge and certainly more passion and more connection to queer issues. Being queer does help me see firsthand how deep the issues are, and it does make it a little easier to educate people because it's a part of my everyday life. But it's not the core of why I decide to educate people about queerness, and it's very insulting to imply that. It's basically telling me that I haven't done a good job of convincing you that queer people matter as humans, because it's clear that to the asker, queerness is only relevant if they are queer. I try and use my privilege every single way that I can to educate about the most underserved societies, the most ignored societies, to bring to light issues that people of that identity are having trouble getting heard. To give a great queer example, most of the time when I'm talking about queerness, I like to focus on trans women of color and promoting their voices. I'm not a trans woman of color, but that definitely doesn't mean that I don't care. I hope this video helped clear a few things up. In general, whether you're queer, straight, blue, cisgender, purple, transgender, pink, I don't know. Feel free to write down any questions you have, any comments you have, any suggestions you have down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Stay queer.